What is the best way to collect Magic cards, build your commander deck, and not lose value? Let's talk about it. Well, what is going on, everyone? Welcome back to Kitchen Table TCG. My name is Louie. Today we're going to go through some of my commander decks, as I am going to be replacing a couple of cards with the SpongeBob Secret Lair cards, the cool rare counterspell, and the cool Smothering Tithe. I wanted to have a conversation about collecting Magic the Gathering. We've talked about this a few times on the channel, but I wanted to show you what I actively do, and one of the ways that I try to prevent myself from losing value, even though I have commander decks. I don't just always sell cards. One of the things with my philosophy on commander decks is I don't really update my commander decks very often. I rather have a bunch of different commander decks and just revisit them every couple years and that kind of thing. So this is an Angus Mackenzie deck I haven't played in a very long time. This is just like an Oops All Fog deck. It's kind of boring. But it's kind of fun to play too, kind of fun to bring a reserved list card to the table every now and then. And then the other deck here is a Gavi deck, which has always been one of my favorite cards and one of my favorite decks. It's just a cycling, very, very cool thing. So I have a bunch of commander decks. I probably have 15 to 20 commander decks. One of the ways I try to prevent myself from losing value to reprints and that kind of thing is, and this can be wild, I know, stay with me, is removing the lowest version of the card value-wise and replacing it with a more expensive, less susceptible to reprint version of that card. So today we're going to be taking out a counterspell of the Angus Mackenzie deck and putting in the SpongeBob counterspell, and then I've got a Smothering Tithe in the Gavi deck that we are going to be replacing with the Smothering Tithe there. And the principle of this, the idea here is that something like a counterspell, a $2, $3, $4 card, and this is not going to be, I'm not going to make a ton or save a ton of money off of a $2 or $3 or $4 card, but something like a counterspell will eventually see reprints to the point where it is a 10-cent card. I really believe that counterspell, it's one of those cards on the verge of them putting it into some one of these commander deck precons, where, you know, single sellers crack like crazy. There's the counterspell. We're taking away a 7th edition. People are going to hate me in the comment section for taking away a 7th edition counterspell and replacing it with this derpy SpongeBob counterspell. But the premise of this idea that I want to talk about is there's two types of people. People who buy the cheapest version of the card, and then people who buy the most expensive version of the card. And really, there's a third person who's like, they just buy whatever one is at their LGS because they're lazy. They don't want to wait for it to ship. They want, you know, they don't want to wait for it to come into the mail. They don't trust online sellers. I hear that all the time. All right, so we have the counterspell in there. But there's really two people who want the cheapest version and people who want the most expensive version. And I would encourage you, and where I try to find myself, is to be right in the middle of those two people and play both sides. In other words, when I build a commander deck and I'm like, hey, I'm going to build a brand new deck, typically I will just buy the cheapest version of the card, or in our case, I'll take the version of the card that we have in our stock, because it's cheaper to me, right, to just keep the card rather than it's to go through the process of selling and paying the fees and the shipping and all that stuff. So I'll take the version of the card we have, or I will buy the cheapest version of the card because I just want to play the deck, see if I really like it and that kind of thing. And then what I do is that over time, I increase the versions of the cards if I really like the deck, if it's something I'm going to keep together, if it's something that I love to play, if it's something that I'm seeing at the table often, I will start to slowly, over time, make it the more expensive version of that deck. So I will do something like replacing the Smothering Tithe in here with a expensive Smothering Tithe that I either, you know, got from opening Secret Lairs, or maybe I really like the art, so I'll buy it. And the reason that I do that is because the Smothering Tithe base version will be the version of Smothering Tithe that gets hit the most with reprints. It'll get hit the most with the depreciation of value, because eventually this will again find its way in a commander precon, or Hopefully not, right? I get it. Or it will just be reprinted 15 times, and eventually the base version of Smothering Tithe, because everybody wants the cheapest version of the card, will gradually erode in value. Whereas something like this, on the off chance that they reprint it, you lose. It's a little bit of a gamble. If they reprint this card and make it super easy, obviously you're going to lose a lot of money. This is like I don't know, at least $200, $400 Smothering Tithe, right? I don't really know exactly how much this is. We pulled it 6 months ago whenever these came out. It's been sitting on my desk. I've been waiting to do this video until I had time to do it. But the point is that the risk of them reprinting this is far lower. And the risk of them reprinting this is almost 100%. This is going to erode value and go down in value. And so what I do is I put the more expensive version of the cards if I can afford it, and if I have the means to do it, and if I really like the artwork. It's not just an investment thing. It's also a enjoyment thing. I'm not going to just put an expensive card in there just because. But I put the more expensive version of the card in because I believe that this card over time will increase in value compared to the way that a Smothering Tithe base version will increase in value. And if I am actively playing this deck, if I'm enjoying this deck, it is worth it to me to go ahead and sell this card, the Smothering Tithe, get the value out of it now before they put it in a reprint, and make it a $15 card or a $10 card. And I firmly believe that the reprints won't affect the higher value version of the card. Because in my opinion, people are paying not just for the Smothering Tithe here, but for the Mr. Krabs, for the rarity of it, for the exclusivity of it. There is a lot more going into this version of Smothering Tithe than just the base version. So I wanted to share my philosophy on that. Again, I would never encourage you to invest in this card in terms of like, if you're just saying financial money, there's far better things to invest your time, resources, money, whatever in than a Mr. Krabs Smothering Tithe Magic the Gathering card. But if you are actively playing Magic, if you're actively building decks and you're actively seeing these cards, and if you like Smothering Tithe, if you like Mr. Krabs, and if you like the whole, setup of the deck that you're building it in, I think it's a much smarter use of money to have more expensive versions of the cards in your deck because they have less likely to decrease in value over time. At the end of the day, a lot of people avoid the topic of money with Commander and avoid the topic of investing. But at the end of the day, no matter what you spent on your deck, even if you're just going to proxy the whole thing, I mean, like I've done this math in my head too. The idea of proxying this whole Commander deck, and it costs what, $50, 5 cents or 50 cents a card to proxy, something like that. $50, the amount of time, energy it takes you to cut the cards, whatever. Let's say $50. If you just spend $50, you're just going to lose that money, right? You can never get the value out of a proxy deck. Whereas if you have the money to, to build a real version and to collect the cards and invest in the cards and whatever, you can actually gain money from collecting and playing Magic. And I think that's the beauty of this hobby, right? Is that things don't just go away in value, but the card like Smothering Tithe is going to have value over time, and it's a way to get back from the hobby and not just spend your money on the hobby. So it's even comparing to like just proxying, which is another thing that happens and turns up all the time. And my ideas on proxying have changed a lot over the last couple of years. I used to think, man, everyone's just going to proxy the value of their deck. But what I've learned is people are very lazy and they don't want to do that. They just want to pick up the card as soon as they can at the store. And so, yeah, anyway, those are my thoughts. Let me know what you think in the comment section. Is this stupid to buy a more expensive version of the card? The big risk that you have in this, in my opinion, is what happens when a more rare, more exclusive version of Smothering Tithe comes out. I tend to think something like SpongeBob has enough of a premium to avoid that. If a masterpiece Smothering Tithe comes out, you'll start seeing people say, well, I like SpongeBob, and those people buy the Smothering Tithe that's SpongeBob, and the other people who just want the most expensive version in their CDH Flex deck or whatever end up buying the masterpiece version. So I don't think like the secret layer ones really hold a lot of. The other one is like the Mana Vault from Fallout. Like that card, I mean, it's always going to have an audience because it's got the Fallout collector. It's a vault. It's a Mana Vault collector. You've got the whole wide, the whole width of the collector base going into that card. Even if there is a better version of Mana Vault that comes out in terms of rarity, I think at the end of the day, there's still the Fallout collectors. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section. I hope you have yourself a fantastic day. Be kind to the people around you. Looking forward to some Final Fantasy coming up soon.